Thank you for that. So my kind of cheat sheet is that I've worked for and I've sold to over 100 Fortune 500 companies. I've worked for over 100 Fortune 500 companies, mainly on their largest deals, hence why I could even write that book that you have in your bag. But today I'm going to cover a specific topic, which is how do you sell innovation into big companies, which is actually a bit different. And the reason why it's different is actually the way they're set up. So if you sell to smaller companies, and these are kind of obvious, but I just set the scene. When you sell to smaller companies, the budget owner and the sign-off person is the same person normally, max one level up for the sign-off. Whereas in a big company, you can have a VP or a director person having a sign-off of 50K and carry a budget of 10, 100 millions. And then to get the sign-off, you need to go 2 or 3 floors up. And that obviously changes how you need to do things. Also, the larger the companies become, the more split responsibilities you have. So if you go down on the director level, they have really small responsibilities. Yeah? So, and this is changing how you need to do deals. So I'll share with you a hack first that I'm sure that a lot of you can use. I call it the red fiat. I'll share the hack first, and then I'll go through, if you can't create a hack, how can you land deals with really large companies? So, and I actually had a car, a second car, that was a red Fiat, a Fiat 500. You know those? It was super small. I loved it. My wife thought it was super geeky. But my mother actually ran into a pole. She did the classic one. She had the phone on the passenger seat, and someone called. It was actually my wife calling her, and she did this. Luckily, it was in our neighborhood, so she drove pretty slowly. And the second topic is, okay, how do you run deal orchestration to win the normal way? And most of the things you see are derived from the top tier 1 deals of the largest companies in the world. I've had the luxury of working with them. So first, the red fiat. So you have 2 options when you sell. This is particularly for land deals. Expand is something else. So for a land deal, when you sell to a small company, you can sell the big vision, the full suite you have, everything. If you sell to a large company, that can be very negative. I can share some stories before I learned this. So one of my earlier companies was, we were the first online platform in the world for gift certificates, for the management of gift certificates. And we were selling to the larger retailers. But we also had loyalty program support. We were the first in the world, which is now common sense, barcodes on the screen. We had all this cool stuff. We had a patent on all the radio signals from the phone that you now use for the blip payments. But we couldn't defend it, but that's another story, unfortunately. So I remember I had meetings with the C-suite of Tesco, and I ran through the whole thing. And these C-suite people was all fired up. I could see their excitement. And they're like, wow, Chris, this is the future. And I was like, yes, nailed it. And then I was like, so can we book a follow-up meeting? They're like, no. We're so far away from what you showed. I mean, we have a ton of basic stuff to solve before this is even viable. So after a while, I learned when they say this is the future, it's the reverse to what? It's the opposite to now, right? So then later, I was trying to sell to Next, the British fashion retailer. And I worked my way up to a meeting with Simon Wolfson, that is the majority shareholder and the president of the company, through his secretary. Once I had the meeting booked, I did 40 individual calls inside his organization to do the need analysis and to find a gap. And I'll come back to the next story. So you have 2 options when you sell to a big company. You can sell a red bus, which is your full solution. The problem with a red bus, if you imagine a Walmart parking, you come in with a red bus. Is it easy to park? Nah. You have to smash a few cars to make way for your bus. The opposite is you come into the same parking lot with this little red Fiat, you can almost park it sideways and it still fits, right? So that's just obviously a metaphor. So what you need to do when you sell, you want to sell something big, but you need to start small. And there's some characteristics you need to think about when you design your land offering. So you should have 1, 2, or 3 red, green, blue, whatever Fiats. And first of all, it's easy to sell to the director level. And do the director level, do they like the board and the C-suite always in bigger companies? No. They think it's bureaucracy and they're fed up that they don't get it. So they want to do skunk work. They gladly buy from you in silence, like under the carpet. So there are a few characteristics you need to think about to sell to middle management. First of all, do not say that you give value to logistics, to procurement, to finance. If you're sitting down with someone from marketing or something, you talk only about values for them. Because what happens if I start to tell them that we deliver value to all these other 4 teams? Anyone who knows? In the buyer's brain, it triggers, damn, I need to engage them as well, because we're interfering with what's outside of my responsibility. So all of a sudden, by just saying that, you can trigger complexity in your deal making. So you need to talk about a very narrow scope, narrow value. You need to understand the difference between sign-off level and budget. So I can be on a director level, and again, I have a sign-off level of 50K, 100K, but I have a huge budget. I hear a lot of salespeople like, yeah, we met Brian, it's his budget, so we've got them. No. So you need to design, so what should your enterprise be? If their sign-off level is 50K, it's kind of a leading question. 50K, exactly. So by coincidence, your enterprise is 50K. Yeah? So Sangram and I, we met when I started the world's first platform for account-based marketing, quickly followed by Sangram. He became bigger, but we met at that time. And we sold to regional marketing leaders within the IBMs, the Oracles, and those. And they had 50K sign-off. They could sign for 3 months at the time. They didn't have a budget for account-based marketing because it didn't exist. They did have a huge events budget. So first of all, the price that we had was 50K. The length of the contract was 3 months. And obviously, we didn't talk about values outside of delivering for that marketing person. But another trick you need to think about is you need to find a budget row that you can steal. Because who can change the budget and how often do they change the budget? It's not on director level. It's C-suite and board, and typically yearly, sometimes 6 months at a time. So you need to navigate, unless you want to wait, which many people do. Yeah, we need to get this into the budget for the next year, so come back in November, right now. So you need to find a way to steal a budget row. The easiest row is to steal is people, the people budget row. Most, even low leaders have a big people budget. Anyway, so what we stole was the event budget row. So we kind of accidentally mentioned in the meetings some of our clients want us to put event on the invoice. And they were like, what? You can do that? I'm like, yeah. It was like they lower the voice and like looking over the shoulder. They're like, okay, I want that. And of course, we even reported on some event metrics. Just to kind of, I coined the name Red Fiat later, but it's a way to hack the big corporate system. So the sign-off level, the contract length, the scope, the values, but also which budget row do you steal? Does that make sense? So one thing, we don't have time to do it now, I encourage you to think through one or a few red Fiats that you can create. It's very effective. It's crazy effective. That was how we, in my earlier company, we got into over 100 Fortune 500 companies. We went all the initial deals kind of under the carpet. Anyone who's tried the red Fiat? Yeah, my colleague. Anyone else? Is it good? Good thing? Good hack? Yeah. All right, switching gears into how you need to do normally. So first of all, big companies buy innovation in a certain way. We call it the W model. You need to typically start pretty high up because those are the only ones that can sanction a new initiative. So, and I'm intentionally vague here. It's owners, board, C-level, lowest VP, but you need to go pretty high up. And what you do with them is you anchor a new promise, you anchor a new category. Do they have time to spend 7 meetings with you? No. They typically delegate you. They say, okay, I love this. I'll set you up internally with Stephen, Laura, and Christopher. And they will pull in some people, yeah? So they delegate you down in the W to somewhere in the middle. These guys are spending 8, 10, whatever meetings with you, and they pull in a bunch of people. There's also a guy here, you see Stefan on the floor -5. I just want to tell you about a trap. So you're probably too experienced, but a lot of commercial organizations, they're like, yeah, we got a lead from IBM. Okay. It's Stefan. He sits on floor -5 under the car parkings with a low ceiling, and when you flush the toilets, it's like, and you have red lamps in the corridor, like the culverts. So don't fall into the Stefan trap. Stefan is important though. He typically has triple screens, super technical. He can waste time on having you do research for him, which is a common trap for younger companies selling into big ones. You do research for free for them. Anyway, back to the W. So these mid-management people typically they investigate you, and then they say, go back to the top and say, okay, now we've looked at this. We think it's viable. We think we should do it. What does the top say in a big company? Can they buy from the first guy walking through the door? No, they even have rules against that. You always need to expose whatever you look at for competition. So you either go down to the end of the bottom of the W, where there's a beauty contest. Now, if you're all into an RFP-driven business, the whole mirrored N of the W goes away. You go straight into either an RFI or an RFP, which is more about unique selling points. That's an easier game. But when you sell innovation, you have to go to you do a red fiat, or you have to go through the W. Does that make sense? So what we've specialized in Megadis/Njord, we've just changed the name, by the way, is what we call complexity 5 and 6 deals. The difference between a complexity 4 and a complexity 5 is that in a complexity 4, you have a few meetings with a few stakeholders, and they, like a handful of stakeholders, can say yes. It's normally classified as a complex deal. A complexity 5 deal is typically you take the same offering, you just move it up in size, and all of a sudden you need to convince several teams, so several groups of stakeholders. And then you go from a very sequential way of generating leads, having meetings, and you can follow a very clear sales process. When you're in complexity 5 or 6, it feels like a never-ending lobby game. It's a multi-threaded marketing and sales approach. So marketing and sales need to be working closely together. It's not a lead and then they leave it. They're working towards all the contracting and then on the expand phase. We have clients all over the world, right? We've gone from a consulting organization to a deal orchestration platform, and we're still small, but we've gone from 0 to 3.5 million in 28 months, and we grow with profitability. So another thing we've seen in complexity 5 and 6 is, I claim this is the best kept business secret in the world. We call it the rainmaker dependency. So normally when you do research, you get 87%, 33%, etc. We've looked at over 400 companies in complexity 5 and 6. All of them, without exception, have a rainmaker dependency. Meaning there's a very small amount of people that can pull off the complexity 5 and 6 deals. So even companies like IBM has the same, HP has the same. So it doesn't go away, but in a scale-up phase, it's the difference between death and life. It's what, if you look at the startup and scale-up statistics, so you have some, I don't know them by heart, but it's something like the number of companies that reach 10 employees is like 10% of the startups. And then and about $1 million in ARR. The companies that go from 1 to 20 million is another 90% drop-off. So you're looking at a really tight number of clients that can do it. And we claim that 100%, I love your models, hang on. He's such a bright guy, by the way, and such a nice person. I said it to David. It's probably the nicest smart person I know. Anyway, but the best kept business secret on top of getting it all right with the problem market fit, the product market fit, and the platform and the go-to-market fit is how do we crack the rainmaker dependency? So in younger companies, it's quite often a founder or two, very stereotyped. In a tech company, B2B, it's the founder CEO, it's either a recruited or a founder, head of sales, and it's a CTO. Those three, very stereotyped. You always have a gazillion of deviations. But that's a big problem when scaling. And it becomes even worse if you go from having an infinite market, where you can sell to literally anyone, to having what we call a finite market. A finite market can be an industry, can be 2 industries, can be the largest companies within these 10 industries, but in North America. So you're typically looking at somewhere between a handful to 200 companies that are representing the majority of your value. I just forgot to say something. So we've looked at all B2B companies on the Fortune 500 list, all of them, even the AWS and those kind of that you can think they make money from everyone, have made a leap into the Fortune 500 list by doing mega deals. All of them, without exception. And it's almost always happened in the expand phase. You do a concrete land deal, like a red fiat, or you do it the hard way, and then you expand it into a giant account. So when you have a finite market, these problems accelerate further because you need to have a crazy high win rate. And you can't apply the same playbook. So what's typically called the Aaron Ross playbook. He was a Salesforce guy that invented him. Have you met him, by the way? Yeah? So he invented lead generation, the SDRs, the demos, and then you pull in an account executive, et cetera. That model is great for a long-tail business. When you go up into complexity 5, it's horrendous. Sorry?
It stops working.
Yeah, no, it doesn't work anymore. So we work typically either with companies that are pure play, complexity 5 or 6, or we call them move-ups. They built the majority of the deals in a very sequential mode, and then they want to go upstream or up market. Then all of a sudden, that playbook stops working. It's even a catastrophe up here. Yeah. So the successful model in complexity 5 and 6 is to scale the rainmakers instead of multiplying them with the best training in the world, because I've worked with 100 Fortune 500s. Even they can't crack it. They have the rainmaker dependency forever. So it's better to build a scaling model around your top strikers. And that's what we've kind of double-clicked on. So you serve them with great stakeholder maps, great intel about these accounts, great content, a great media machinery that drives your brand, your positioning, your face as well. How can we accelerate the familiarity effect? So that's kind of our claim to fame. We scale rainmakers, and we believe that the world of complexity 5 and 6 will be dominated by even fewer rainmakers that are even more scaled by AI and various platforms. Just a comment on Njord. So since we went from dealing with the Fortune 500 companies' largest deals into working primarily with more medium-sized companies that have a rainmaker dependency, the name mega deals actually scared some people off. They're like, oh, we actually don't do the $10 million plus deals. We're more like a few hundred to a few million kind of deals. So you're probably not for us. So we started to play around with the word rainmaker. And we're originally from Sweden, and the Vikings are primarily Scandinavian. And there's a god next to Odin, Loki, Heimdall, and those that is Njord. And Njord is the rain god. So it's a bit of a kind of funny coincidence. And it was our youngest colleague that came up with it. So some problems when you're dealing with a finite market and high complexity is actually the fact that you can win, and you come with a new innovation, you can win the heart and brain of an internal expert. And they're like, wow, this is amazing. But it's equally hard for them often to sell it internally as it is for you to convince 100 people in an organization. So if you're not well known in the stakeholder groups, you have a 20th of the probability of closing. Another thing that a lot of our clients are saying, what if these 100 to a few thousand people in these 150 accounts, what if they knew at least a light version of what we know? Then it will be obvious for them to buy. So there's a knowledge delta, there's a company branding delta, there's a personal brand delta, there's a knowledge delta. So what we did to start off with, I can take that too. So we looked at the whole, taking it from the Fortune 500 world. What are they using to support their multi-billion-dollar deals? They use 18 systems, which is crazy to navigate. They have big teams. They use a bunch of agencies, etc. When we looked at that, how can we take that, make it operationally available and financially available for medium-sized companies? So we did two things. We went to the same vendors and said, look, we want to take this tech stack to small and medium-sized companies. So you need to see us as the client. We're an aggregate of many companies, but we are your client. But only with one extra paragraph. We're allowed to offer your tech stack to others. And then we did something else. Because operationally, it's horrendous with a relatively small team to run 18 systems. It's even horrendous for the Fortune 500 companies, because when you split responsibilities more and more, you go, I mean, it doesn't work. So we built software and AI on top of the 18 systems. We embedded them. So all of a sudden, the operational excellence is there. You have a deal orchestration, which is using the capacity of 18 systems that we haven't built. It would take hundreds of years to build that. So we took that kind of crazy good tech stack, negotiated it well, embedded it in software, and all of a sudden, we can offer it to smaller companies. And we start off with the two areas that are on the steepest part of the law of diminishing returns. And it's the stakeholder maps and a very advanced media orchestration. We're now dropping the connection to the CRMs, quite a few use cases based on AI, I'll show you soon. But we've made it available, which is normally, you're looking at 700 plus per year in cost. We offer it for less than a salary. So it's super disruptive. And we call the space deal orchestration. So the first thing we do is that we map out all the stakeholders, because typically organizations don't have stakeholder mappers. So we do it, and we populate the software. We also locate these individuals across Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. The reason why we locate them across also Instagram and Facebook is that most people, I think we are more go-to-market-ish people, like Sangram said. Most non-go-to-market people are actually not hanging out so much on LinkedIn. So one of the key things we created was something called individual targeting, where we can target exactly the right 15 to 100 people in an organization across Insta Stories, Facebook, all the news sites in the world, LinkedIn, and YouTube. So we create like a filter bubble around them, and it's not relying on LinkedIn. And then sometimes we use heavier techniques like IP targeting and geofencing certain offices. We're also double-clicking on pushing not just the brand, but actually making these key people even more into celebrities. Because if the company is super well-known and the key individuals that interface with the company is super well-known, they get access to the C-suite, to the VPs, et cetera. So all of a sudden, you have more people in the meetings than before. And we also take the chance to use media to micro-educate the clients into at least a light version of what you need to know. And these, I won't bore you with this, but these are 10 of the 18 systems, and you need quite a few people. And so by embedding all of that and run some of it with our people, we can offer something crazy complicated for a fraction of the cost. And we're using this kind of deal orchestration both to land deals, but more than anything, expand deals, and some of them are using it for funders. We have some new innovation. I was sitting down with the team some months ago, and we were like, all of our clients are struggling with content. the common scenario is that the best people are sitting down with a content person during an hour and briefing them. The problem is that most people are not good at metafying what they know, what they've learned during 10, 20 years. The other problem is that this content person doesn't know the field enough. So they interpret it even worse. And then they come back and say, oh, so I now drafted 3 articles, a few LinkedIn posts, some draft video scripts. And the founders or these star people are going like, you don't get it. You're not even close. So typically they have to take this content and rewrite it, which is really damaging. So then we created a connection to all the AI note takers, because in the AI note takers, you have the aggregate of all the meetings. And in the meetings, you have the ICP, the problem statements, the category competition, the business case, who's doing what and all of that. And then from those, we are prompting and creating draft LinkedIn posts, draft video scripts, and it's working so well because even, so some of you know me since a while, I've been super active on LinkedIn for like 20 years. And even for me, and I think I'm a pretty decent LinkedIn person, the LinkedIn posts that were coming from my customer meetings, but AI massaged, have a triple engagement. But I'm good with it because it's still my meeting, so it's not fake. And then we've added some account research and intel about the people. So before we end, I will share some of the key takeaways. The first one, this hack. Do some exercise internally and see if you can find it. If you don't remember all the attributes, you can email me. It's Christopher@neworder.io. Yeah, do some internal exercise. It's super effective if you want to hack the big corporations' systems. The second one is that support your top people and also identify them. Who are our top commercial people? And say it. I'm super equal as a person, but it's like in sports. We can't put the average people when there's 10 minutes left in a basketball game. We cannot. And then another insight is that the marketing and sales tech stack is over-engineered. And what we've done to try to mitigate that is to embed it. Yeah. Cool. You have the book in your bags. We have a gazillion of content, and please connect with me on LinkedIn. It was a pleasure to be here. And I must say, Adam and Sangram, and I expect to have more, I will leave with so much knowledge, and it feels so great to be here with you today.